two elite units, one US Army, one US Navy. Let's check them out.
They are the U.S. Army's elite fighting force.
The type of person that's in the regiment are motivated. They don't settle for second best.
They are the U.S. Army Rangers. But how do these elite warriors compare to the Navy SEALs?
We train to jump, we train to dive, swim, come out of the water, fight on land, and do anything in between.
The Navy's legendary Maritime Special Operations Force. What sets them apart? What do they have in common? What can they do? Join us as we dive into two of the most renowned special operations units in the United States military. This is...
I do have to say they've got to be two of the most well-known units within the world. Take away obviously the SAS. They are extremely well known and two absolute great units. So I'm very interested to hear how they're going to break it down and what they've got to say about it.
Army Rangers versus Navy SEALs. If military units factored their age, the Army Rangers would be like an old man with a cane, and the Navy SEALs would be like a baby in diapers. The 75th Ranger Regiment can trace its lineage all the way back to the French and Indian War in the mid-1700s. A man named Robert Rogers would stand up informal long-ranging units known as Rogers Rangers, whose devastating quick-strike tactics would inspire informal ranger units up through the Civil War. Almost 200 years later, a modern ranger unit was reborn during the outbreak of World War II. Consisting of an elite corps of 500 volunteers, these warriors would see more close-hand combat than any other American soldier during the war. It was during their participation on the D-Day landings that the Rangers gained their famous motto, "Rangers lead the way." Just like...
Very interesting. I didn't know the Rangers went that far back. Always good to see. Some of the British regiments have got a great history that go back hundreds and hundreds of years. I love tradition, I love history, and I love that units keep that. And it's interesting to hear that their motto is actually from D-Day as well. One of the toughest and most harshest battles that the Americans have ever seen in one day. So, and I think it's an absolute brilliant motto.
You can lead the way in Enlisted, today's sponsor. Enlisted is a World War II multiplayer shooter with a strong focus on historical accuracy and authenticity, all with dynamic gameplay that never takes you out of the action. The scale of combat is huge, with dozens of customizable soldiers, light vehicles, armored vehicles, and aviation. Enlisted offers amazing campaigns that immerse you in the time period, from the beaches of Normandy in the Pacific, the house-to-house combat of Stalingrad, back to the heart of Berlin in 1945, with unique maps, troop types, weapons, and vehicles. Make sure to use our favorite weapon, the flamethrower, which can wipe out anyone in your path within seconds. Enlisted is available to play on PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, as well as PS4 and Xbox One, with cross-platform support. It's completely free to play, no purchase necessary. Just use our link in the description below to get a massive free bonus pack of 3 days premium time and several orders for troops and weapons. After fighting in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, the Army Rangers evolved into the 75th Ranger Regiment as we know it today. They would move on to make a worldwide name for themselves by partaking in several global impacting missions and conflicts, and were called upon to lead the way in the global war on terrorism. While the Army Rangers were making a name for themselves long before World War II, the Navy SEALs...
Yeah, wasn't it the Rangers that are actually first in Afghanistan? They were called up first, and it was actually the first boots on the ground when the war kicked off. They were the first guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that's true.
Just beginning to find their footing. The SEALs traced their lineage back to the underwater demolition teams of World War II, equipped with just a K-bar, swim fins, and explosives.
Look at that. Compared to how they are dressed today, that is completely different when you look at some, you know, a Navy diver or some sort of Special Operations Unit diver. Sure, completely different. Insane that they would go out just like that.
The UDTs would insert behind enemy lines, avoiding detection by the enemy. They were so effective that they were a part of every major amphibious landing in the occupation of Japan, and even had their hand in D-Day alongside the Army Rangers.
Interesting, because you don't hear this sort of stuff about these little specialist teams. I love hearing about this.
UDTs continued to develop and master their craft throughout the Korean War and into the Vietnam War, but their mission set wasn't enough. The Navy needed a special unit capable of operating not just from the sea, but also the air and land. This led to President JFK establishing the first 2 SEAL teams in 1962. Throughout the years, they would be involved in several major conflicts, from Grenada, the Iran-Iraq War, Panama, the Gulf War, Somalia intervention, the war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and much more. The SEALs would build a reputation for themselves and became well known for their motto, "The only easy day was yesterday."
Another good motto. I think that's an absolute brilliant motto, especially for when they're going through their training. But would like to see another motto for when they're actually possibly at war, but an absolute brilliant motto.
The US Army Rangers are badass, and there's no doubt about it. As the US Army's premier direct-action raid force, the 75th Ranger Regiment is one of the most capable and lethal fighting forces the world has ever seen, often relied upon to complete some of the most dangerous missions imaginable. The US
I think that's true. From what I know, have seen about the Rangers, they're an extremely capable special operations unit, conventional force. From when you look at it, Navy SEALs, Delta, the SAS, SBS, direct action, hostage rescue, working in really, really small teams. I know the Rangers do that, but I feel like they're put out in much larger teams as well, and are able to carry out your standard sort of conventional war fighting as well. They have that capability, as well as working in small teams, direct action, hostage rescue, insert in, say, like Halo, Hey-Ho, or in any other sort of way.
Navy SEALs are the heart of the Naval Special Warfare Combat Forces, excelling in virtually every environment. There's a reason why SEAL stands for sea, air, and land.
Can you imagine just going into battle with a chainsaw on your back as well, as long as all the other heavy kit you got to carry?
Testament to their ability to conduct a variety of high-stakes special operations missions wherever required. There is very little a Navy SEAL can't and won't do. So when you compare the SEALs to the Rangers, how exactly do they match up? You might be tempted to think things are pretty straightforward. Hell, both are special operations units in 2 different branches. The Army is known as a land-based branch, and the Navy is known as a maritime-based branch, so the main separator must be the water, right? If only it were that simple. Army Rangers have their hand in combat diving, and the SEALs have been operating in strictly land environments throughout the Middle East for years, and that's just one example of many. We're just getting started. While the Army Rangers are primarily a land-based unit and the SEALs are a maritime-based unit, they both fall under SOCOM. As a result, they share mission sets, but each have their own respective specialties.
This is just like the SAS and the SBS. The SBS do specialise maritime. They all have to do the underwater diving course and their specialist diving role, but the SAS do have their boat troops as well.
Of boiling it all down would be like this. The Rangers are like a hammer and the SEALs are like a scalpel. But what do we mean by that? Rangers are a specialized light infantry, meaning they operate in larger numbers than Navy SEALs do, who operate in platoons within teams. Thus, Rangers are very good at direct action raids against in-place targets. They can launch full-scale assaults and cripple the enemy in a short amount of time. Navy SEALs, on the other hand, are more so utilized for missions requiring the utmost precision or leaving a smaller footprint in the area of operations. Need to take over a small town or airfield? Call the Rangers. Need to neutralize a few enemy combatants? Call the Navy SEALs. But if you're more of a stickler and looking for the on-paper mission sets, the Army Rangers' 3 main missions are Special Operations Raids, Forcible Entry Operations, and Special Reconnaissance, whereas the Navy SEALs' main missions are Direct Action, Counterterrorism, and Foreign Internal Defense.
Yeah, so like I said, working in small teams, working in larger teams, your Rangers, your infantry can go in a large-scale force. SEALs always working in those sort of smaller teams, counter-terrorism, your more specialist high-profile missions.
Both do more than just their main missions. Like the Rangers, the SEALs also have their hand in special reconnaissance and capturing high-value targets, but due to the way they are leveraged, the SEALs are more likely to find themselves conducting unconventional warfare tactics. Since the Rangers are more of a brute fighting force, they tend not to deal with areas such as foreign internal defense or VBSS missions as much as SEALs do. But that's the beauty with all things SOF. Despite their different mission sets, these operators are versatile and capable of doing very similar things.
And that's one thing why these guys are specialists and they go through such training. You've got to be versatile, you've got to be adaptable, you've got to be able to handle any sort of scenario that they throw at you. Just because these are your mission sets, they want you to be ready for anything. Yeah, this is what your main missions are, but we want you to do something completely different and go and take out this high profile target. We want you to go in here into a small team, get in and out without being seen. And that's why these guys have to go through extreme and arduous training.
The truth about the SEALs and Rangers is that these units have way more in common than either would like to admit. Both of these communities have snipers, breachers, medics, weapons experts, you name it, each leveraged unique to their unit structure and operational needs. They both pride themselves on being effective killing machines who can kick down doors and neutralize everyone inside. Naturally, that's where the rivalry comes from. While the final result is similar, Army Rangers and Navy SEALs have different origins. Rangers are infantrymen first, whereas SEALs are sailors first. Besides the CBs, the Navy SEALs are pretty much the only ground combat elements in the Navy, so a lot of sailors have to catch up in learning small unit tactics and other field skills like land navigation. Rangers, on the other hand, have at least been introduced to all of that because the Army as a whole needs its soldiers to be trained in the basics. These differences are obviously ironed out the longer each spends in their respective careers, but it's an important point to make nonetheless. The Army also classifies Army Rangers differently than the Navy does for Navy SEALs. While they're known as the U.S. Army Rangers, the 75th Ranger Regiment is a unit, not a job. What do we mean by this? Well, a U.S. Army Ranger can be an 11 Bravo infantryman, a 68 Whiskey combat medic, or a 92 Golf cook. Each of these have gone through the Ranger selection process to get into the unit. Think of it like a special training that separates them from regular Army personnel.
That's how the Royal Marine Commandos work in Britain.
And the Navy SEALs are a specific job in the Navy. While there are support staff who work in the SEAL teams, they don't have to go through the same selection process as the SEALs themselves. If someone wants to become a Navy SEAL, they have to change their job or specialty to join that elite group. If you enjoy our content and want to support the channel, please help us reach our goal of 5,000 Facebook followers. If you don't have a Facebook but still want to support us, please consider contributing to us on Patreon, where we have some pretty cool benefits. The links to these will be in the description and pinned comment below. So, in layman's terms, Army Rangers are part of a specialized unit and they can have different jobs within that unit. Navy SEALs, on the other hand, are a specific job in the Navy, and anyone who wants to become a SEAL must switch their job to join their ranks. With that said, what does it take to get into the 75th Ranger Regiment in the Navy SEALs? Both the Army Rangers and Navy SEALs have difficult selection processes with high attrition rates. These communities require their members to be both mentally and physically tough, as they will be expected to deal with extremely challenging situations. The Army Ranger pipeline is shorter than the Navy SEAL pipeline. In fact, Rangers are pretty much the only soft force that can train you up to speed and send you to the battlefield within a year of starting basic training. But
that's still not very long though. If you look at Britain, Paras and Royal Marines are classed as more of elite fighting forces, 32 to 34 weeks approximately, I would say, for their basic training and their training to be ready sort of operational, I believe. Obviously these guys are a little bit more specialists, but then if you wanted to go on to our sort of special operations, Pathfinder, SAS, you could be looking a lot longer before you're actually operational once you've done basic training, trade training, and then their selection process as well.
I think that the pipeline pales in comparison to the SEALs because you can go down range a bit faster. To get into the 75th Ranger Regiments, you gotta pass two main courses. The first course is either Ranger Assessment and Selection Program 1 or Ranger Assessment and Selection Program 2, which is dependent on your pay grade. Higher pay grades go through RASP 2. RASP is the filter the Rangers use to weed out those who can't make the cut or don't want to be there. Upon completion of RASP, you'll get the Tan Beret and the Ranger Scroll. Over half of those who try out don't make it past RASP. Next, you also got to pass Ranger School.
Quite a high failure rate for obviously quite a large unit.
which is a leadership course where you get the highly renowned Ranger tab. Not every
So yes, they're different. RASP and Ranger School are completely different. Anyone in the Army can actually go and attend Ranger School and get that tab, but you can't get and go and attend the RASP unless you go to 75th Ranger Regiment.
soldier who gets their Ranger tab is in the 75th Ranger Regiment, but everyone in the 75th Ranger Regiment gets their Ranger tab.
There you
After
go.
the pipeline, a newly minted Army Ranger will integrate with their team and will begin working up for the next deployment cycle. The Navy SEAL pipeline is known for having arguably the world's toughest selection process, from the recruiting office all the way to when they pin on their
I
trident.
wouldn't say the world's toughest, but definitely one of.
A fraction of a percent of people make it through. At Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, or BUDS for short, roughly 1 in 5 make it through. BUDS is known for its infamous Hell Week, which is a 5.5-day ordeal where candidates are put through the ringer with only 4 hours of sleep. After BUDS, you will move on to SEAL Qualification Training, Jump School, and SEER Training. Upon completion of the pipeline, a newly pinned SEAL arrives at their unit and will receive roughly 18 months of training before they're operational. For those who may be interested in joining either of these communities, you may be happy to hear that you can get a guaranteed shot at both of their pipelines. You can do this with the Army through an Option 40 contract and with the Navy through the Warrior Challenge program. Each will have you jump through a few more hoops than if you were just trying to get a normal job, but you'll have your fair chance at joining these elite communities. But there's a big difference here. Remember how we said Army Rangers have a multitude of jobs within the regiment? Well, if you don't make it through their selection process, you can still go back to your original job. On the Navy side of the house, if you don't make it through the SEAL pipeline, you'll now be needs of the Navy, leaving things entirely up to fate on what jobs will be available to you. It's important.
And obviously, if you're wanting to join the Navy SEALs, you want to do something cool, something different, and something specialist. So once you fail BUDS, you get put into the Navy, you may not be satisfied. That's the only issue with it, going direct to SEALs and then failing.
To know the risks you take when signing up for years at a time for the military, so take the calculated risk you're comfortable with. Just don't quit. Thanks again to Enlisted for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to go and use our link in the description below to play for free today and get that free massive bonus pack for 3 days premium time, troops, and weapons to jump right into action. The purpose of this video is not to pick a winner. Rather, we wanted to give you the best information possible on these elite communities and to understand the nuances between them. Both the Army Rangers and Navy SEALs have earned their seats at the table due to their outstanding records, professionalism, and untold capabilities. In fact, both the SEALs and Rangers each have highly secretive Tier 1 units that operate in the shadows. To learn more about these elite Tier 1 units, our must-watch video gives you a deep dive into what they're all about. The link to it is in the description below, along with our social media accounts. Well, that is the down and dirty of the Army Rangers versus Navy SEALs. If you learned something from this video, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. As always, thank you for watching.
Another great video by General Discharge. Go and check out the original video in the description. Put out a lot of information there on their history, how they work, how they operate, how you can join them, the selection process. So very, very interesting. Like I said, as you can see with this video, you can see the differences. SEAL teams, small units, more high profile missions, operations. Rangers dealing with those sort of operations and missions, but can go more direct action, more larger scale forces, and that conventional infantry as well. So a different capability compared to the SEALs, different units, different selection. You've got to work out what is best for you. But a great video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.